Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. I am Matt Capper and this is another video on Raid Shadow Legends. That's a good cup of coffee and a good coffee cup. You can get yours too at the merch shop. Link in the description down below. On the other side, the beautiful Mad Capper himself. Get your 3% mug, available now from shop.teespring.com/whatever my account is. How's that for promo? I hope you enjoyed the intro. It was something a little bit different than I did. It was me maxing out my Great Hall. I had a little fun. Made sure I recorded the last few battles that I had to get there. And it was really fun to make, actually. It did take some time. It was a little different, but fun anyway. I hope you enjoyed it. So, the Great Hall. Let's talk about the Great Hall. The Great Hall has been a source of opinion among many content creators and endgame players on how to build it out. Where's the best way to go? And I thought I'd throw my my hat into the ring. I have built out my Great Hall differently on many different accounts, and I feel after a lot of trial and mostly error that I have a system by which I feel is correct, and I wish if I would have started all over again that I would have followed this ideal, especially on a pay account. But free to play, you can argue the same thing. Pay account, obviously you're going to get more champions, better champions more often, more frequently, so it's just easier to farm. So making mistakes can be erased by the fact that you're just massively hitting arena as much as you can because you have the champions to do that. But let's go into the Great Hall here, and we do talk about a couple of areas that are very important to consider. One is where you get your rate of return. So if you think, we're going to talk at each one. So accuracy gives you 80. In dungeons, the most important accuracy is 210-ish, 210 plus. Ice Golem, I believe, is 230 plus, and of course we have the Ultra Nightmare Clan Boss, which is sitting around 240 plus. These are approximate only, and that's for the best rate of return on your accuracy. Resistance is something that's a lot less important in area 90% of the game. Arena, if you want to resist the enemy, you build out teams with resist, keeping in mind that the difference between 180 and 250 resist is probably nothing. You know, when you're building out debuff and strip champions, you're building them out in the 500 to 700 range. So unless you can get your resist in that north of 500 to disrupt some of the champions, especially speed champions with accuracy as well, it's kind of a pointless stat. So it's usually something that I recommend focusing on last. Doom Tower Hard is probably the biggest exception to that. Even on normal, some of the bosses require you to have some pretty good resistance requirements in order to most effectively take the encounter. Crit damage, you're looking at north of 200 is the most important number. Hopefully you're going for a 240 to 260. Murder Inc. had a great video out about the relationship between main stat and I believe in that he used attack and crit damage, and where that sweet spot is, and what 1% crit damage is equated to an attack, so that you can min-max if you wish. If I remember, I'll put a link in the description. But you know, generally build, you're looking at, you know, if you can get 240, 250 crit damage is kind of that goal on most of your nuke champions. And then from there, as your attack increases, you also want to increase your crit damage in a balance. Defense, effective defense is an important thing. Defense itself, I want to say 4100. It's been a while since I've watched the video a very long time ago about effective defense and at what point it's more important to get HP than defense. Keeping in mind that defense-based champions, especially if you have a nuking defense-based champion, like, for example, a Rosin or a Solus, that require heavy damage, you're going to want to go above that threshold. But 4100, for example, the Clan Boss, if you're doing a non-unkillable team, that 4100 area, 39 to 4200, is kind of the goal for your defense. Attack, we talked about it with crit damage, but attack is, for a nuking champion, you want to push that as high as possible. In relation to your crit damage, north of 4,000 is kind of the starting point. That's where I go, especially in the early game with champions. Make sure they have at least 4,000. For dungeon runs, at least 4,000. Most of the time I'm trying to push them to 5,000 with my most important nuking champions in that 6,000 to 7,000 range. HP, finally. HP is something that's good. The more the better. There's never a bad, you know, other than certain circumstances around controlling where the stun lands on the clan boss or those sort of things. HP is always a good thing to have, especially when you can get your defense number to that sweet spot. Then you just want to effectively push your HP higher. Keep in mind that HP is even more important for shield set champions, because the more HP you have, the greater the shield is going to be on your champions. So with that said, you look at the numbers that you get, and the main stat ones here are all 20%, which arguably is the easiest you can get. Without that 20%, you can still hit most of the numbers you want. So typically these three are not as important as crit damage and accuracy, and though resist is for the game less important, the effectiveness of each level within your haul is greater because, you know, for example, if you only need 300 resist to be able to run your dungeons to not get, you know, stunned from the dragon, for example, 80 out of 300 is a much greater number than 20% of, you know, 2200, you know, when you're looking to get 4900 defense, for example. So, you know, tend to consider focusing on accuracy and crit damage. Now, the next thing I want to focus on is what champions am I trying to improve, and I want to focus on 2 areas. Okay, 4 areas. We'll talk about 4, but there's 2 that are more important to me. Number 1, my champions. Number 2, the areas of which I wish to use those champions. Number 3, am I arena focused on this champion? And number 4, am I dungeon or doom tower focused on this champion? So when you answer those questions, it kind of becomes a little bit more of a good map on where you're going to focus on your account. For example, if I have a endgame champion that I've pulled, and that's a key number, an endgame champion, I do not want to focus my early game arena around provisional champions or champions that are progression that you're probably just going to vault later. Your starter champion's a perfect example of that. Most people, when they hit into the mid game, and definitely when they hit into the end game, their starter champion is either completely vaulted or very situationally used. In fact, in my free-to-play account, I don't even use my Elhain to farm anymore because I pulled Mashaled, and he just, because I'm putting better gear on him than I put on her, he's as effective at farming, and I haven't pulled like a Bellower or a 5-second farm yet, so that's where I've kind of put my focus on for that. So with that said, you want to focus on the champion you have, the end game champion you have. And the second thing is where that champion is being used. So for the clan boss, for example, you need 240 accuracy plus, as I always like to get them at to 250. And you want as much crit damage as you can get. And whatever the champion is, you probably need defense. You're probably not in an unkillable right away. So if we're talking about someone like Ninja, most of you have Ninja that are watching this. He wants that accuracy, he wants that crit damage, and he wants that attack. So those are good areas to focus in order to build up your hull. Maybe you have a lot, like I on my free-to-play account have Magnar, I have Thane, I have Mashaled. So I have 2 endgame champions and I would call her Thane a possible endgame champion for clan boss, but at the very least a provisional champion, likely someone that's going to stay in my faction wars. So you know, I have 3 Spirit Affinity champions. 2 of them need accuracy. Magnar can use accuracy, but not for how I use them. Crit damage is important for all 3 of them, and attack is important for 2 of them. HP, of course, for Magnar. And Magnar, arguably, to me, is the most important of those champions because he does the most raw damage for me when I'm pushing into the arena. So I do want to have an increased focus on HP for his sake. That's a lot to digest, and it's not all. You also have to consider what you have. Now, I'm going to switch over to my free-to-play account to show you what I mean. A lot of this is built in the moment. So there were challenges. I've finished my challenges, but those challenges dictate also what you're going to do. They ask you to do 3, and what you want to do is you want to focus on the 3 that are going to help you the best in the moment. This is for your provisional champion. So at the time, I had Frozen Banshee, and I had Gala Longbraids, and I had my starter champion as my most important champions. So you can see why I have the crit damage here, and an accuracy for Frozen Banshee. I also didn't have the greatest dungeon luck for pulling champions that are great for dungeon pushing. So it was more important for me to have that accuracy, which is why you see it pushing up, because I wasn't getting level 20 dragon dungeon. I was actually pushing really good champions for clan boss before I even had the best champions for dungeons. It was a little bit of a strange different one, but getting Vizier Ovalis as my first champion really set the tone. I got a Skull Crusher early, then I got a Fane not far after, and a Frozen Banshee. So I kind of had my team for Nightmare Clan Boss, and now Ultra Nightmare Clan Boss already set and ready to go. So I made the decisions based on that. And then once I get this to 10, then I'm going to start looking at what are my endgame champions. Well, like I had already mentioned, for here, I have endgame champions, and they're right here. There's a Mashaled, there's a Magnar, there's a Ninja, Rosin, and so the Drakes. And arguably Frozen Banshee for the Clan Boss is an endgame champion for me until such time as I pull some sort of unkillable, which, as a free-to-play, I'm not going to certainly hold my breath for. So when you start looking at the champions you're using, start using that, then you start to know where to focus. But how to allot and when to allot the points is something that's probably the most disagreed upon among all the creators. Most tell you to focus on a particular area. They say, hey, look, you have banners that can give you 96 accuracy, making this a lot less important. But you also have gloves that can give you 80% crit damage, making this less important. So a lot of people argue all around. What I say is, look at the effectiveness of your medals. I can get, if I needed, 13 medals can get me a level here, right? That is such a cheap number as compared to the 900 gold medals I need for here. So to improve the overall ability of my account, does it make more sense to get everything, and I'm going to ignore resist, but everything else, as I have champions of all styles, everything else to a higher number? For example, take everything here to 3, then take my key stats to 6, then take everything to 6, and then take my key stats to 10. I believe that is the way to build your account. I know a lot of people disagree with that, but if you look at your account, you're probably using all 4 affinities to some degree. And if there's one that you just haven't pulled any, like for example, you just haven't gotten any Void affinity champions that you care about, then maybe you can omit that. But for the most part, giving that 13 gold here is going to be more effective than, say, taking this and needing 300 gold here. Because of the amount, that 13 gold, I just need to win 3.25 arena fights at level 4 to be able to make that up. At the very worst, where I'm at now is gold 2. It's been a little bit tough in arena, but that's 2, so I can run 7 fights and I have that back. Well, I get free 7 fights for free. I actually get like 30, I think it is, fights free a day. So to put and get 2% extra there might be worth more to me than to, even though it's, crit damage, which arguably has a better rate of return on it. It's only 2% as well. So is that the best place to put your points? I say no. This is not my conventional wisdom. This is not how I built my main account. But I now believe taking everything to level 3, except for resist, and then taking everything after you focus the items to level 6 that are really good, taking everything to level 6, and then focusing the gold on the particular ones you want. Also, this way, as you pull champions and you get new champions, so for example, right now, my best champion's Magnar. So if I were to say I'm going to just focus his crit damage and his HP up to 10, make him big. What happens if halfway through that, I'm at level 8 for both and all those medals, and it's a free-to-play that can be tough, and then suddenly I pull a Trunda. Well, now, my best champion is actually up here, so now I have to start that all over again. Whereas if I balance everything through, no matter which champion I pull, maybe I pull a Madame Saris next week, and I would have this balanced out. Maybe I pull, there's, 600 champions in the game now, and between the 4 affinities, it can kind of hurt you and hamper you if you don't have a balanced great haul as you pull new champions and as you get champions with different expectations and different balancing. So that's my opinion. That's what I suggest you do, is build out everything to focus on champions, but also focus on the efficiency of the medal. So take your key stats on your key champion. So when this gets to 10 and I've done the missions and challenges, right? I'm going to go here, and I'm going to go for Magnar, and I'm going to go for Mashaled. So I'm going to build out these 4 stats up to the highest bronze. Once I get them there, I'm going to take everything to bronze. Once I'm done that, well, actually, I'll probably come up here to crit damage, and I'll probably take the attack, and I'll probably take for Rosin this up to 3 next, then everything to 3. Then I'll go to 6, and I'll take this stat to 6, this to 6, and I'll keep doing it that, and I'll play with the champions that I need the most, and then maybe they'll change as I pull new champions, and then I'll go back and I'll get the Great Hall evened out. And to me, when you talk about efficiency of medals, especially when you don't have a lot of medals because you're free to play or low spend, that's going to be the better way to build out your Great Hall. Those are my thoughts. Maybe your thoughts are different, and that is the great thing about Raid Shadow Legends, is there are plenty of content creators and endgame players that can give you reasoning as to why they think their way is better, and it's up to you to take them all in and then pick and choose whatever you feel is the most accurate. It is also important to note that sometimes the best thing to do is focus on an area of the game that is giving you the most trouble. For example, say you're in Doom Tower, you're stuck against one of the bosses at Doom Tower hard level 70. And that boss needs resistance in order for your Drexthar Blood Twin to survive. As an example, that is a real world example with one of the bosses. Would it not make more sense to come into here to Force Affinity and give yourself level 6 and get that extra 40 resist if that's what's going to help you past that Doom Tower boss, as opposed to just humming along with this, doing the other things, and giving yourself maybe a little bit better damage on champions that are already well built for the arena, for dungeons, etc. So always be mindful of where you are in the game. You know, maybe you are pushing Ultra Nightmare really quickly, and you need the accuracy of these champions to be higher in order to improve in the game. Well, that is then the best place, in my opinion, for you to focus. Maybe you take one of these to 7 because you know that extra 10%, that extra 10 or 20 accuracy to get up to there from where you are is going to be the difference between you landing poisons and not landing poisons. You know, accessories especially, they can be very random, and it can take you a long time to get a good 6-star accessory banner, or maybe you're just not getting a good substat on your neck for what you need for your poisoner in the clan boss, those sort of things. So using this to pinpoint those deficiencies in your account is also a good idea, and would circumvent the general map that I put out, in my opinion. That said, that's the end of the video. I hope it was at least informative for some of you, or if nothing else, it gave you some food for thought and a different perspective on how to build out your Great Hall. What are your thoughts? How did you build out your Great Hall? How do you recommend building out your Great Hall? Leave them in the comments down below. But most importantly, I appreciate you for joining me with this video. I hope you are being kind and staying safe out there, and we'll see you in the next video.